Multi-Hade by Joshua Oswald. On a grueling hot May school day, I waited for the bell to ring to indicate that this class period was over and my last class was about to begin. After the bell went off, I leaped out of my chair in excitement that my day was one period from being over. The urge to play video games at my best friend Austin's house was the only thing on my mind. I shuffled amongst my exhausted peers in the crowded dark hallways to reach one of my favorite teacher's classrooms, Mr. Basco, for 12th grade English. It was oddly comforting being sandwiched and moving at the pace of a Chicago freeway in those hallways. Once I entered the organized, clean gray uniform like classroom, I was relieved. It was a bit cooler in this classroom than the previous one, since it was in a different section of the school. The shade trees had also helped a small level of coolness. Mr. Basco had all the windows opened up, with one of those metal industrial fans making lots of ruckus that you could barely think with the continuous mesmerizing, hypnotic fan blades rotating, wishing you were anywhere else. My classmates were tired, sweaty, and cranky as they were unfocused on the teacher as we sat in those uncomfortable chairs with attached desks. Class, today we will write an essay about a tragic event that took place in your life. It needs to be at least 2 pages long, and it needs to be personable. Also, try to add some creativity in it, Mr. Vasco announced. Vasco was a well manicured man wearing a dress shirt and tie with gel faux hawked hair. He smelled like a shopping mall men's clothing store. The defeated classroom let out an audible, ugh. A person spoke up in the classroom. Does this mean we go next door into the air conditioned computer lab to work on this? Mr. Vasco replied, yes. We will head next door and cool off from this treacherous weather. The classroom rejoiced. The enjoyment can only be described as how a child opens presents on Christmas morning or a snow day school cancellation. We rushed to the computer lab in a crazed panic. A few of us knew there were some solid working computers left, but most were unreliable and would often freeze up on you, making this assignment more annoying. We had those colorful Apple computers that were close to 10 years old at this point. Being from a time where cloud saving and central air in schools were not commonplace, I envied the kids of today. The lab was a beige and white colored room with long gray tables, comfortable black rolling chairs, wide green chalkboards, and some white dry erase boards, and a row of windows to look outside and daydream. If one were to glance outside them, they would see the football stadium, grassy hills, tall oak trees, and plenty of neighboring homes. Austin and I were some of the lucky few that happened to get good working computers, although he was probably more excited to spin around in those rolling chairs. The noise that Austin made as he spat out sunflower seeds. He always seemed to be eating those or crazy coarse Skittles. What are you going to write about? Austin asked me. I'm going to write about my Uncle Jimmy. Do you have something in mind already? I asked. Austin replied, I'm going to write about when my dad and I went to Cedar Point and how seagulls pooped on us as we were leaving. I began to laugh uncontrollably at this. I wish he would have told me this story sooner in our 2-year friendship. Austin would always wear his unkempt Adidas hoodie and basketball shorts with a long Cincinnati Bengals key lanyard sticking out of them. After my recovery from laughter, I felt sorry for him. He must have had an amazing day with his father, and it became a scarred portion of his childhood by seagulls attacking them. His parents were divorced, and his dad was a semi-truck driver, so Austin lived with his mother. His father resembled Ron Swanson in Parks and Recreation. Austin's dad was quite a gentleman, as I never heard him raise his voice or even show when he was excited. It's quite a tragic story. I'm sorry you experienced that. I wouldn't even know how to react if I was in your shoes, I spoke. Austin responded with, you don't. You just run like hell and you try to get into the car and leave. Until that point, it was one of the best days as a kid, and I never wanted that day to end. My dad and I had some great greasy foods and rode lots of fast and tall rides. Who would want a day like that to end? Unfortunately for us, it became a tragic day rather quickly. Suddenly the bell rang, and the school day was over. As we made our way to his house, I was a little nervous about not accomplishing much on my essay. Fortunately, we had a few days left to work on it, and I knew I would be able to put my thoughts onto a screen. Austin and I shared some thoughts and concerns with our papers while playing video games. At this point, we were just ready for our final year in high school to be over. A few days passed as we entered the air-conditioned computer lab a few more times to finish our rough drafts. After you finish your rough draft, you will then find someone to proofread it, as you will proofread someone else's essay, Mr. Vasco announced. After hearing that, I would quickly ask Austin if we could proofread each other's works. Luckily, he agreed, and we would give some tips and spot issues in one another's essays. What's this word? I asked Austin. What word? Had, Hade, like I had to go to the grocery store, he replied. I responded with, that's not how you spell had. You need to drop the E. It is only Had. There's no way I've gone through 12 grades of school to misspell had. How is that even possible? Austin sounded upset as he stated this. And I'd hate to tell you this, but you've gone at least 12 years misspelling it. Should I go find Mr. Vasco to get his confirmation on who's right or wrong on this? I spoke. Sure, go ahead and get him over here, Austin replied. I quickly found Mr. Vasco to ask how to spell had. How do you spell the word had? I asked him. Had. Vasco confirmed the argument. Austin couldn't believe it. He was pretty upset when he mustered under his breath. How have I gone 12 grades misspelling had and nobody has corrected me? The school system is a joke. I could not help but laugh, like I did when he first brought up the seagull story to me. Vasco looked a bit confused and puzzled as he replied with, I suppose so. I have no idea how this is never corrected previously in your papers. It was just one of those life mysteries that happens. Even today, I give Austin a ton of guff for things like this. We have been friends since 2007 and will not change a thing. He was recently my best man at my wedding, and he has always stood by my side in times of happiness and sorrow. I'm so glad we became friends in business class talking about video games. I enjoy his stubbornness, humor, and loyalty. Without his friendship, I would not be where I am today. We have grown up to be better people for our friends, family, and our literary narrative.